it is 7 p.m. I would suggest we move ahead. I hope Cedric shows up soon. We do have a public hearing to hold this evening, so we'll get that underway. So I would like to call to order this regular board meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners being held on Tuesday, November 12, 2024. First item is remote attendance, and we are not aware of anyone requesting to attend remotely. So that takes us into the public hearing in truth and taxation. And I would like to open that public hearing now. The Board of Commissioners of the Urbana Park District in Champaign County, Illinois now opens a public hearing. November 12, 2024. It's 7:01 p.m. probably. This hearing is being held at the Planning and Operations Facility at 1011 East Curve Avenue in Urbana. The purpose of this hearing is to receive any and all public comments on the proposed tax levy as required by the Truth in Taxation law. Is there any member of the public here seeking to address the board on the proposed tax levy this evening? I see no indication of anyone making a comment. I will say that I did get a piece of email from somebody who did comment on it, but it was almost more like a question, although anyway, so seeing nobody here prepared to make any comments, I would, well, we need a motion and a second to close the hearing.
I move to adjourn the public hearing. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Let's go roll call starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 Okay, I declare this public hearing closed. Next item of business, the Roman numeral 3, is to accept the agenda or amend it. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I noted should be a correction on item 12 on page 5. It should read reconvene the regular board meeting, not study session. Just wanted to note that. Which we don't before that.
So that's the clear understanding of the removers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We didn't need to do a roll call. Oh, okay. This is a roll call required. So is there a motion? Yeah, it's already on the table. Let's do a roll call starting with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Roman numeral 4, public comment. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment on something other than the tax levy? Apparently not. And next item is staff introductions, and the note on the agenda is that there are none tonight.
Correct.
Okay. We can move on into Roman numeral 5, Urbana Park District Advisory Committee report. None at this time. So, moving right along, we are to the consent agenda. And on tonight's consent agenda, the approval of the October minutes, namely the study session on October 1 and the regular board meeting on October 8. The receipt of the 3 monthly departmental reports, to wit, administration, planning and operations, and recreation. Approval of the monthly paid accounts payable. Action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude. Action on ordinance 2024-08 to approve remote attendance policy update, adding a new qualifying event pursuant to recent legislation. And lastly, action on ordinance 2024-07, authorizing the sale and disposal of personal property of the district. Under our rules, it's the purview of any single commissioner to remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for action separately. Is there anyone wishing to remove anything from the consent agenda?
I don't want to remove, but I want to know there's a misspelling on Tuesday, October 1st, Laura's name is misspelled.
Didn't even know.
Yeah, but the substance is there.
Substance is there,
and we'll-
yes.
Okay.
I'll take that. So I move to approve all the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in the omnibus manner.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded, and under the rules of the consent agenda, at this point, there to be no further discussion. We'll do a roll call, starting at the right with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting. So, we are now to the reports section and move to financial reports.
Starting with our revenue and expenditures report. This report shows our receipts of revenues and expenditures for the prior 12-month period with the budget for the current period and preliminary unaudited results for the 6 months ending on October 31st of 2024. And beginning on page 1, which is labeled as Sum 1, this is all of our funds excluding the capital improvements fund. Revenues shown here, $10,333,567. This is slightly up from last year and slightly up from last month. We are still awaiting our final tax distribution property taxes distribution. We do typically receive 6 of those, and we're only at 93% receipt so far, so we are expecting, I believe it was around 500,000 yet still to recoup, so looking forward to that here in the next maybe week or so. Expenditures listed at $5,599,251. Again, this is slightly up from last year, but it's up dramatically from last month, about 1.1 million. This still does give us a surplus after 6 months, meaning an excess of revenues over expenditures of $4,784,316. Again, this number is down about $1 million over last month and about almost even with last year. Page 2, this is our Sum 2 shows only the capital improvements fund, standalone. We do show revenues here, $3,543,563. As we'll talk in the capital budget reviews, $2 million of that increase was for park, or $2.5 million. We did receive $2 million. And $788,000 from DCEO. So that number is up about $3 million over last month. Expenditures in this fund, $5,291,088. This is up again $2.5 million over last month and $1.5 million over last year. Looking at that beautiful building. Expenditures, you'll see revenues. This is a deficit of $1,747,525. Third page, Sum 3, all funds district-wide. Here we're noting at the very bottom that fund balance for the district as a whole, $13,143,953. The remaining pages of this report are our general, recreation, museum, and indoor pool funds, our main working funds. Are there any questions on the revenues or expenditures? Okay. Moving on to our treasurer's report. This is the amount of cash the district has on a single day, October 31st, 2024. All of our funds are listed down the left, where monies are invested across the top. Noting in the bottom right that total investments on this date, $15,476,328.59. Page 2, the top section, this is where we have monies in interest-bearing accounts So of that 15,476,000, we do have $11,193,070 in investments at varying rates. We did have 3 CDs mature during October. They were reinvested, they were laddered 6 months, 7 months, 12 months. So turn those right back around. Bottom section of page 2 is our interfund loans. New activity here, another 55,000, brought down to UIAC. And as you'll hear in our capital review, we did have quite a few large expenditures there as we buttoned up our committed list of year 1 of our agreement with them. This light tower being the largest ticket item and completed. So, page 3. Last section of the treasurer's report, this lists distributions for the month of October. Vendor payments match the paid accounts payable in the consent agenda, and total distributions or disbursements of funds. This includes all payroll and vendor payments, $2,707,511. I think really the only thing to note here is, as per usual, October in the liability fund, our insurance renewal, about $240,000. Capital improvements, just that's a big number, 1.6 million, about the same as last year. So, if there are no questions, I present to you the treasurer's report for audit.
I move to accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second?
Have been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, let's do a roll call. Ms. Edwards?
Aye.
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 Carries unanimously.
All right, and that just takes us to the capital budget reports to review. The areas are highlighted with an asterisk indicating new activity during October. Beginning with our 2019A. Again, we did receive $2 million of our park grant proceeds, $788,000 of our DCEO. And we did receive $27,549 from Ameren. This was in relation to an incentive rebate program for the Health and Wellness Center. I believe it had to do with the specific like LED lights that we were, agreed to use in there. There were several elements that qualified for it, but so we're turning that right back around into.
So this is independent of the solar installation?
Correct.
Correct,
Yeah,
in one
there's a group
time.
called Wildan that is contracted through and help us identify elements of the construction that are incentivized. And so there are several items that were included in that.
Just a one-time rebate,
That's
right?
right.
Moving down to the expenditures, we noting here using the park grant, $9,335. This was towards core invoice number 10. You'll hear these same numbers repeated because they're spread over several budgets. Using our DCO grants, $352,261. This was for core construction, number 17 and 18. Down using donations and contributions, $322,000 towards the core number 18, and $97,000 for paid stocks for furniture at the Health and Wellness facility. From miscellaneous donations, $10,000. This was to help subsidize Mr. Alston's mural. The whole ticket was higher than that, but we received donations to go towards that. And then using our general fund transfer, there was a total of $408,000 utilized here. It was for a variety of things, a little bit of the core number 17 and 18, MET testing invoice number 14, Farnsworth number 10. We did purchase our copier, the second installment of the sign, and just little ancillary items there, totaling up to the $408,000. $2024, we have received $1,400 in various tributes. And then down in the expenditure lines for tributes and donations, we expended $3,186 for trees and benches. For the hazard tree projects, $3,420. This went towards tree trimming at Crystal Lake Park, and it went across a couple of budget lines, so you'll hear that one again. Construction crew project, $780, some cobble, some lumber, some stain, just various supplies throughout the district. Technology, $17,893. This was for our website development. I think that's in another budget line as well. We did reimburse, I'm not sure if that's the right word, we applied for that $350,000 DCEO grant, of which filtered to Urbana and Champaign Sanitary District, so we did reimburse them $321,000 towards the interceptor crossing and then the sidewalk project at Ambucks. And down in the equipment, $2,245. This was for tool shelving for one of the trucks we just recently purchased. And $24,593. This was for 2 cabs and accessories for the 2 wide area mowers that we just purchased. 2023, no revenues received during October. Expenditures, $328 expended for some tribute trees. Hazard tree project, here's another $1,380 for the tree trimming within Crystal Lake Park. Additional $2,710 out of technology towards our website development. Hardscapes and fencing, we expended $1,180 in regards to, I'm not sure if it's engineering or not, at Southridge Park. $1,100 engineering, okay. And then we $547 spent on pavers and sand at Prairie Clay. 2022, no revenues received during October, $564 spent on tribute trees, $6,742 for plaques, benches, and bike racks within Prairie Clay, and $40,337 expended to Fairgram for the Broadway project, Fairgram number 7. 2021, we had one expenditure, $5,605 for plaques and benches for tributes and donations. And 2020 and 2019 had no new activity during October. Are there any questions on capital budgets I can answer? I'll turn it over to Derek and Andy for some capital updates. Thank you.
Okay, so study session, I know we updated on a couple projects and talked a little bit about Prairie Clay as well, but this is just some images from the final items that were going in to the playground area before we had opened up. So our bike racks, repair station pump, the picket fence, obviously, wayfinding sign and donor recognition. We'll still have the water fountain at the pavilion and the sculptural benches as well to go in, but it's open. Been open for almost 2 weeks now, and it's been a pretty big hit.
The parking lot doesn't look at it anymore.
No.
Right, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Health and wellness, that was a big focus of the meeting last week, but Scott had mentioned one of the outstanding items is signage, interior signage. So the signage that's required for the building has been installed. The other signage that's not a requirement for room identification should be getting delivered and installed at the end of this month. And then our solar group has been on site getting materials delivered and setting up. They're going to start at health and wellness, potentially finish health and wellness in the next month, and then work over to our building here at planning and operations as well. So this is one of the pictures they sent of that progress. I'm scared of heights, so I will not be making any at any point in the future. Southridge, this is something we're probably at about 60% design right now and still working with Fairgram. If you recall, we're planning on bidding this winter. We had a grant application last year that unfortunately we did not receive, so we've been protecting some funds in other capital budget years to provide for the replacement of the concrete path. We're also going to include some bench pads and a parking stall off the road that's very similar to what we did at Blair as well. So we met with Fairgram last week and reviewed progress. Here's some pictures from the existing asphalt path. It's in very rough condition. So our hope is to have this to bid maybe in January and have a potential recommendation to the board for February or March, and then be in construction in spring into early summer. And then big focus for tonight, for as far as capital wise, is our project team has been meeting for the last few months to update our prioritized list. And as part of that, last month we had the draft 2025 budget. What we also update with our prioritized list is the 5-year capital budget. So 2025 will be coming at a separate item, but we wanted to just review 26, 27, 28, and 29. Obviously, these things will move and change every year as we review and have different priorities, but wanted to at least kind of touch on the next 4 years after what's getting approved tonight as far as big moves that we're seeing capital-wise in the district. I can try to zoom in a little bit. So a lot of the regular appearing lines you'll see in all these budgets, so ADA, tributes and donations, vehicles and equipment. I'll try to just feature some of the big cost items and what those entail. So vehicles and equipment for 26, currently on our schedule is 2 3/4-ton trucks, dump truck, athletics mower, and gator. And then the main focus for 26, we're calling it playgrounds. And so we have 2 playgrounds that are due for replacement, Victory and Sunnycrest. And so you'll see those appearing through our trail projects line and a separate $200,000 playgrounds line that we're identifying for both of those parks. We're also transitioning the UIAC capital lines to the outdoor pool. You may remember from last month reviewing 2025. So that's identified in here. And then we just kind of have our regular expenditure lines, hardscapes and fencing, operations and recreation, small equipment. We also want to take a look again at the lake house terrace, stairs, do a program and site plan update. This also potentially would include looking at the large pavilion and seeing if there's potential for adding a restroom at that pavilion as well. And so this is moving us to planning for a much larger project down the road. And then we've also set aside some funds for the Busey Bridge replacement. We are getting grant funding, but we want to protect some of our funds as well for any overages we may have, so we can make sure we get that project taken care of.
What's the 81,000 above playground?
Oh, that's general, like a general contingency. So typically we try to leave around 50, 50 to 75, so that'll just kind of move. That's could go to playgrounds. That's like our main feature of that year, but if it needs to flex somewhere else, we're just leaving some wiggle room. So in 2027, we have 50,000 just for a general contingency. Vehicles and equipment, 125,000, and that includes 2 half-ton trucks and the replacement of our rec van. Then we have our regularly appearing small equipment lines, hazard tree, and then this year's gearing up for Prairie Weaver Phase 2 recreational amenities. And so you'll see that appearing in our hardscapes line. That we want to kind of gear most of that 150,000 towards that project as needed. And then trails, and then we have a separate $450,000 that we're currently setting aside for inclusion of recreational amenities there. We also had, I think 2 years ago, maybe last year, we did a review of kind of our priority painting projects at a lot of our outbuildings. And so this is probably the biggest one that was on our top 5 list, and it's the Corn Crib and Interpretive Center at Meadowbrook. So we worked with a contractor, painting contractor we've had a good relationship with, just to get us some budgetary numbers on those priorities, and we've been setting those aside in our 5-year plan now. So that moves us to 2028, where we have 115,000 for vehicles and equipment. That is a custodial van, a half-ton truck, the planing Prius, and a forklift. We also have a playground that's due for replacement in 2028 at Crestview. And the big project we're looking to include in 28, hopefully would be part of a museum grant, and it's the BC Woods Boardwalk that we currently have budgeted for $425,000. That would be our local portion that we would apply to that overall project.
Is that just the existing boardwalk?
Yeah. 2029, we have for vehicles and equipment, 125,000. That's a skid steer, 72-inch mowers, and a scissor lift. And then this is the year that we've started to set aside funding for the lake house, terrace, stairs, pavilion, restroom, everything that has been that preliminary planning that we're looking at in 2026 to potentially, if it's a grant or any other way we could make those changes at the lake house. This is where we're identifying that project as a major priority. So we also set aside, you can see a lake house note for hardscapes and fencing as well. So it's just trying to accumulate as much as we can in that year to move forward with the project. So obviously these can flex and change. Our team again will meet next summer. We usually have like 4 or 5 months of review with a prioritized list and solicit projects from the rec core team managers as well. But this is kind of our priorities for the next 5 years. And then we'll have 2025 to you all tonight for review and approval as well.
I have a question about the vehicles and equipment line. I mean, in one of the reports, it said you were investigating leasing. Has it been verified that we can use bond money to lease stuff?
Haven't confirmed it yet.
Okay. I'm gonna
It's on the docket.
Meeting Thursday, we can check with Matt.
Yeah.
And on the follow-ups to see.
Yeah, and it's a fleet program where you don't have to lease. There's options for lease, but there's also options to purchase as well. And then they basically have contractual bid pricing through, it's like Sourcewell type bids where we could actually purchase the vehicles and then have them on a replacement plan or potentially maintenance plan if we wanted to include something like that too. So we're just kind of doing preliminary research of that.
And I just also wanted to note and clarify, phase 2 of health and wellness, like it was 2027 where we'd be adding hardscapes to Prairie Weaver, is that right? But there's a lot more fundraising work to be done before phase 2 will be implemented.
We also have that EPA grant that could help get some infrastructure in place with some additional capital dollars that could help with field development. So it could be a hopeful in-between project. That's what we're hoping. But trying to give the foundation a break from campaigns and then a way to build up and really sell a new campaign.
Farnsworth is doing a more detailed estimate for construction costs for all the Prairie Weaver master plan components, and we're anticipating an OSLA grant application next year. It's generally like a 2-year cycle. Those OSLA grants, from the time it gets awarded, and that's often several months after you apply. So everything's sort of stacked up in anticipation that we'll hopefully get a grant and also have some capital funds.
Also trying to demonstrate to the public we really are supportive of those amenities. They really are needed. So the best way to do that is try to backfill it with projects that get us closer to that.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that report. If no further questions, let's move on to the executive director's report.
Great. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed the You Belong Here report. Always good and interesting and important things in there. If you haven't heard, Prairie Play is open. Halloween Day, we just want to thank everybody, all the donors, everybody that helped, all the advisors, the people that worked on fundraise, the foundation, our staff, all the planning and operations staff. So again, just another huge community effort. really pleased. I think it shows the word I've heard so far is pretty satisfying. So I think everyone's either just happy to be back playing, or they really like the playground, or both. I'd like to think both. It's really an extraordinary outcome. As you know, we have a formal event planned for the spring in May, so we'll be adding a few more things like the sculpture benches and things like that to get ready for that. So stay tuned. Just want to continue on. A quick update on the iParks Fall meeting. You know, insurance is going up, folks, and I think I continue to repeat and report on it, but climate change is really changing the world. We're seeing incredible increases in property damage. You know, my tenure on the board, what I would call early years, more traditional type things, an odd storm, or more likely electrical panel box exploding and burning the building down, some sort of human or, you know, some misfunction. Now we're seeing just a steady report of all kinds of weather-related damages. We're very, very concerned. Hearing it from the top, you know, the big groups of travelers, you know, at some point, they're going to either really jack up rates, you know, in a serious beyond reach, not offer insurance, or we're already seeing that in Florida. There's insurance companies, you know, really talking about, can we continue to fund them and allow them to build at those same locations? So things really need to change. Really urging the board to consider really elevating climate change, you know, next strategic focus. Now we're going to be facing higher costs. Laura and I met with Brian Bekovich, who's our iParks staff lead that deals with those, you know, the claims side and all of that. And, you know, he was understanding, concerns are valid. Every other member agency that's rates are going up are concerned. And when people ask, we're really trying to be very direct and say it's really driven by climate change. Because if you look in the past 5 years at the increase of our weather-related, and they're multiple and they're across huge areas of Illinois, we cannot continue and sustain that, folks. So kind of an in-between move, we're focusing on audits within each district. Basically, let's get accurate accounting of what you have and what you think's worth insuring, and let the members decide what they would like to include and not include, maybe everything, but making sure they're keeping up with those values. If you have a property valued at this, something happens, your insurance payout is that, and it takes 3 or 4 times, you know, to replace it. It'll be at your own cost. And so, again, we're collecting proposals right now to see what would it cost the district to do an audit. They can do it themselves. We've had board members suggest iParks lead it. So we're trying to get some proposals. You know, I can't quote the cost, but saw some proposals around, you know, base of like $5,000. Each building you add could be an additional charge, so you get an accurate assessment of what today's cost, and ideally every, let's say, 3 years, you would update that audit. So that's one way you can protect your assets.
Is this assessing the replacement
Yes,
cost
with the insured value.
of the
Correct.
facility as opposed to
Right.
um,
Today's cost. So our $16 million building. You know, at
but
5
they wouldn't
years.
be assessing the vulnerability of specific.
No, just it's a valuation. Thank you. Good point. Because we're having member agencies that once they have loss, you know, this is what you had to insure and listen to. We're not going to be able to replace it with that. Well, are you updating your audits? It's easy enough, you know, I think a lot of member agencies think that, well, they're raising our increases every year or so, that must cover it. It's a separate issue. Those include business costs and, you know, all of those things. So anyway, we'll be probably rolling out some new information on audits. It's probably not going to be an exciting thing that people are going to get thrilled about, but it's really the best way you can protect yourself and your assets. What we're seeing is undervalued assets, and then something goes away or is destroyed, and maybe it's not replaced, or it's replaced with a lesser item in the community, and gets very concerned. Why aren't we insuring our things? Who's keeping track of things? So anyway, that's kind of where we are. But the big message, rates are going up. It's largely climate. And on the casualty side, let's call it the personal injury, those are relatively steady. In fact, I'd say our 5 years, we've seen a downtick in those. Everybody's practicing safe works, you know, getting their staff as trained as possible. But the what I call weather-related problems are going to only increase, at least based on projection. So we'll keep everyone updated. Don't have easy go-to answers for that, but just so we're tracking that situation. And I wanted to bring it up because it's easy to, well, somebody's gouging or it's greed, you know, I mean, there's profit built in for every part of that, but the main concern is the climate impacts at each park district. Moving on, King Park, we're continuing that master plan update and connecting with new people in neighborhoods. We just connected with Preston Jackson, he's the artist that did our piece there, and he's really excited about working with us and what can develop in the park. So excited about that new direction, and we'll keep working on that. Just wanted to mention and encourage other staff that attended the IAP legal symposium if they have any updates, but I think overall, I think Laura and I were talking, it wasn't the most impactful year at the symposium. Some of the topics were repeated, but Fair Standard Labor Act, that change from exempt to not, that's going to be probably affecting every park district across the state. So I think we got some more information about that. A couple other topics that they may caught anybody's ears worth sharing. You know, it's always informative, good information, but I don't think we heard any like brand new, guess what, this is happening. Often we do, so good for us.
There wasn't a lot of
Yeah.
mind-blowing stuff there,
Right.
but for youth, 13 or 14, 15 years old, they get a work permit. Now they have to be working with a 21-year-old or supervisor at all times,
At the site.
which is definitely going to be a challenge. We do use some for either slide attendants or cashiers at the outdoor pool. Haven't had a chance to talk with Leslie yet on how big an impact that is. Usually we probably do have someone that's 21 or older. It's a shift manager, but we need to make people.
I mean, how close do they have to be? The 20.
They just have to be in charge of the site.
Yeah.
So if they're there and
Arm's
running, running the operation, then they're good. But we have to have someone that's always 21.
I think there were other, like expanded the hours, they can or
Yeah,
cannot work during
yeah.
season, not
Yeah.
season, so there were a couple of changes to the minor element.
I think they, again, touched on social media, and just want to remind our commissioners, your own personal Facebook or Instagram accounts can be FOIA, so
And
keep your
emails.
private. You want to promote park district things, open another Facebook account or account, and you can let people say whatever they want. Remember, it's the taking things down and changing things, so whatever is said obviously needs to remain there. So people interact, well, I don't like that, I'm taking it out, and you can get in trouble that way. So just mind your social media accounts and we'll all be in good shape. But we'll look forward to next year and see what comes along with that. Just want to mention, we talked with Savoy Recreation, I think their village or city is thinking about forming a new foundation, so Kelsey and I met with Nick McGuffey on staff there, and just kind of gave them our experience and maybe some input that might be helpful to them. KRT Pavilion, we're setting up some meetings and discussions with the Urbana Parks Foundation and the Friends of the Bragg Prairie to see if there's any potential joint interest in fundraising or support for that facility, so we'll report back. I wrote in my notes here, digital bidding, learned last week that the Champaign County Forest Preserve is starting to use a new tool to accept digital bids. They are spread out throughout the county and bids get delivered at different places. They'll still do their traditional type, but wanted to experiment with that, so I thought that was interesting and worth reporting. And
Could you expand a little bit on exactly what's different about this?
Right now, people bring sealed printed paper bids, and they have to be, and now this would allow people to submit a digital bid to the electronically. And
So
so,
it's got some kind of electronic signature on it.
yeah, and then it's a
that's
quarter
binding.
type system where it goes in and you can't open it theoretically until that time clock, gets to the bid opening time. So I think the thought are is for them, at least, they're spread out, might be a tool to help things get delivered at the wrong forest preserve instead of the headquarters, and creates problems. I think it'll be maybe save time and money for different, vendors if they don't have to get in the car and drive someplace to handle their work, So we'll get more reports, see how that goes for them, and if things go well. That's the only group that I know of, maybe Derek and maybe
Because
all
they've heard of
others.
it, yeah.
So
Make sure your spam mail doesn't grab it. Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like it opens like the barrier for, or like lowers the barrier for entry, right?
Yeah.
And then it also,
Right.
there's a security aspect on the other side of it.
Exactly.
It sounds like it could be
Right.
good.
We'll see more. I think the thought is, smaller contractors, it'll be an advantage to them, to be able to spread out minority-based contractors, all of that. So, good to see some new things happening, and, if they have reservation and concern with it also, want to have a goof up at a bid opening, it's out of your control. So, track how that goes. Lastly, I think we all received the invitation to the Urbana Senior Club holiday party. It's December 10th at noon. So if you're able to join us, please feel free. Please answer any questions if you have any.
No question? Thank you, Tim. Moving on to the president's report, I don't have much report on other than upcoming meetings. December 3rd is a board study session, and you guys learn from more of it. A lot of it is going to be among the things that we're discussing here, in addition then to the foundation and the districts.
It's the goal.
And then December 10, there's a whole slug of annual things that we need to do. So we're going to buy our new bonds, pay property taxes, and the annual bond sale ordinance, action to accept the annual meeting calendar. Well, the reported winning bid on the annual bond sale, those things are in a little bit of an odd order, but and we need to have we're going to have a review and accept a priority projects report to the Parks Foundation, which actually would be nice if we had that available on the 3rd, if we're going to be meeting with them. But maybe that'll be.
Well, yeah, Tim and I were kind of discussing what the kind of process was last year or previous years versus, our little shift with meeting annually with the foundation. And I think that might have been a little bit of legacy. I think we'd have an opportunity to talk to Derek about it, either back to the office. But I think what we're envisioning is with us having this consolidated meeting in December with the foundation. Perhaps at that point is when we're collaborating on what that project is and then developing that project list instead of going ahead of the meeting with it. So.
Moving on to the
Sorry, just one note is that the UPDAC meetings is the wrong date. It's actually moved up to the 19th, I believe.
Right, so it won't be in the same week as.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. Probably not transfer in the notes.
And then in between the 3rd and the 10th, we also have the joint CUSR on the 5th.
And there was one other thing too.
That's the foundation
Foundation.
event, which I think is December 12th.
That's correct.
On December 12th.
December 12th is the foundation Christmas
Holiday party.
Mhm.
at the Health and Wellness Facility, because CUSR was the 5th. So they were, originally were kind of scheduled for the same day. So we ended up being able to change that before invitations went out.
CSR's at CSR.
Yeah.
One day be simply occasional. So moving on to liaison reports, finance study group. I think everything that we covered in our October 25th meeting has been discussed at least to some degree at this point.
One thing that we haven't addressed as a board is the health insurance situation.
Yes.
And that's still a work in progress.
Yes.
And Tim already mentioned the exempt employee stuff that was part of the conversation as to what those challenges may be, but that's not been fully figured out yet. So, is there anything from the policy study group?
We met on October 16th, and you saw that we had to do some minor amendments to the fair labor standards thing. And we'll meet again in February.
Any Parks Foundation?
We had a busy session. It seemed like the theme of the meeting was just kind of like restructuring and trying to make it more efficient. They elected a new treasurer, Michael Stevenson. Jim Cummins stepped down. And the Finance Committee wants to adopt a more structured, efficient process of handling finances with more accountability. So I'm not exactly sure what that means yet, but we'll find out. Also, the fundraising committee has trying to make a transition from when you were talking about having a special campaign ahead, but I do know they talked about moving from special campaigns to more of an annual basis, at least for now, and develop a better process for gift recognition. And they rolled the events committee into the fundraising and stewardship committee, and they want to clarify what events are for fundraising and what events are for building relationships. So that's what they've been up to, a lot of organizational stuff.
And thank you for that, Roger. And moving on to UPDAC.
So we did meet, we met whenever the last UPDAC meeting was before that at the Health and Wellness Center, and met with Kelsey and Tim and Hannah. And we just kind of talked about future meetings, including one of the things we talked about was like things that, what this UPDAC group could be excited for and what kind of topics or sessions. Looking at a lot of like sort of field trips or those kind of things, but right now the tentative calendar has CUSR in January, Finance 101 and Capital Improvement Plan in February, Matrix Teams, or plus a possible planning and operations tour in March, talking about King Park in April, a Perkins Road tour in May, my personal favorite, and then strategic plan, and then CARES plan review and evaluation in June, and then the rest is like, then we'll be meeting again around that time. And then there's just like, there's a lot of, just like kind of a backlist of possible meeting ideas, including strategic planning, Experience CU update, like a lot of our partners, 40 North, Rotary, a lot of interest in school districts, after-school programming. Yeah, I don't know. I think that we'll have a pretty full docket for both the UPDAC members and for the UPD staff. So pretty good. So anything you wanted to add, Tim?
Very good. Good analysis.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? And let's move on to number 8, old business. Item A, action to approve the tax levy ordinance. 2024, the ordinance number 2024-206.
The notice, i.e. the black box, did appear in the News Gazette on October 31st, as per requirement for our public hearing today, and the result of that black box is what translates to this ordinance. So this will need to be filed with county clerk, and if you have any questions on it, it delineates the revenues and expenditures. There.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-06, an ordinance providing for the levying, assessment, and collection of taxes for the fiscal year 2025-26 of the Urbana Park District.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, we need a roll call starting with Edwin.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. So we have a levy ordinance. Item B is action on any old business removed from the consent agenda, and there was no such. So on to Roman numeral 9, new business, action to approve the 2025 capital improvement budget and the revisions to the previous, and I'm not going to try to list all of these in the motion, but all of the capital improvement budgets have been stacked up here because we've been doing so much construction.
Busy year. And this is only mid-year.
So, yeah, I'll walk through the revisions first. I'll go oldest year to newest year and just touch on all the highlighted sections. And then we'll do a quick review of 2025 capital budget. It's unchanged from our last month, so I'll just kind of touch on some of the big ticket items of that budget. So I'll start with 2019A. I believe this should be in the correct order in your packet as well. And I'll work from top to bottom, starting with the revenues. We have some new revenues that are being recognized. The donations for the mural at Health and Wellness, and then the Ameren incentive rebate. And so that $37,549 is now shown towards the bottom of the Health and Wellness initiatives section. That's health and wellness initiatives from miscellaneous donations. So moving into the expenditures, Crystal Lake Park improvements. If you recall with our Prairie Clay project, when we had the recommendation for award for the Prairie Clay and for Crystal Lake Park lighting, we were taking projects that were wrapped up in Crystal Lake Park overall, and we had holding on to contingencies, and we were utilizing those funds that were currently being held in those projects that were ending to help fund the lighting project and Prairie Clay. So that'll be kind of a common theme in a few years, few capital years ahead. So from Crystal Lake Park Road design and construction, there's a total of $50,000 that now moved to the very bottom for Meadowbrook Prairie Clay. And then health and wellness initiatives was basically just actualizing expenditures that have taken place over the course of the last year. So you'll have the design and construction funds in that central highlighted section, and then the $65,949 was for Prairie Weaver master plan, all the work that had gone into that over the course of the last couple of years. So that will take us to 2019. And here we had a reduction of Crystal Lake Park improvements from the general fund, and that was for Prairie Clay. So that was, again, contingency funds that were held in the road project. We had a pretty large contingency for the Crystal Lake Park Road, mainly because we didn't know everything that we were going to get into on that one, and fortunately we didn't spend too terribly much of that contingency, so now we've been able to free it up for the other projects. And so that moves into the contingency main section that increases it to $104,994. And then we had some expenditures out of general contingency for UC Bridge evaluation and a portion of the conference room AV upgrade. That moves us to 2020. Starting at the top in the revenues, we've adjusted to actual for tributes and donations. And with hardscapes and fencing, that was more road contingency that was then utilized for Crystal Lake Park lighting project. And then from Crystal Lake Park improvement section, we had $97,114 reduced out of Crystal Lake bond funds from the road project and put in the general contingency. So you'll see the net of all the effects of the contingency increasing that line to $111,878. And we used contingency funds for security camera project, Carl, and the outdoor pool. And then the portion for the planning and operations AV upgrade as well. That takes us to 2021, revision number 7. Hardscapes and fencing, that was for Blair Park and hardscapes eval. What was left in that was $4,000, and that was contingency on the evaluation project with MSA. And so we released that, the evaluation's complete, so now that moves to the general contingency section at the bottom. Another theme is our UAAC capital lines. With the new agreement and in some of our recent years, you'll see we've transitioned that UAAC line to outdoor pool capital improvements. So funds that are now unspent from previous years UAAC, we're moving to contingency, and then we'll utilize that for capital improvements at the outdoor pool. I think as the part of the new agreement, we actually have budgeted operating funds every year that would then be our share of overall projects at the indoor pool. And that will appear in multiple budgets after this one as well. Outdoor learning pavilion highlighted line from the museum transfer. We had $15,000 remaining from the UPDAC pavilion. We utilized that remaining transfer from museum fund as part of the Crystal Lake Park lighting project, and that was for lighting directly associated around the nature center. And then the equipment section, we've actualized expenditures for 2 of those 3/4 ton trucks and a portion of the Arbor lift truck, so that now fully expended out the equipment section of the budget. Crystal Lake Park improvements, we had held funds for ITEP Broadway. We didn't know how much local funds we would need to help support the project. It was grant funded pretty much entirely, state and federal. So now that that project's wrapping up, we're releasing those to contingency to be utilized for other projects. And then you'll see the net of our contingency increases to $82,719. And then we had spent those funds out of contingency for the lighting project and some outdoor pool improvements. That takes us to capital year 2022, revision number 4. So here again, we have the UAC capital expenditures that now go towards the outdoor pool and are dropped down into the contingency section. And we had $226 remaining in the Blair Park tennis court donations. And so our last expenditures in that line were for the boulder and plaque. So now the $226 we're moving to contingency and we'll utilize it elsewhere. And then the equipment is similar to the last budget year. We've actualized the expenditures here for portions of 3/4 ton truck, dump truck, plate and title for the lift truck, and a portion of the garbage truck, and that fully expends out that section for vehicles and equipment in this capital year. And Crystal Lake Park improvements, we've reduced about $4,011. This was for water quality improvements. This was the milfoil removal that we did late spring or early summer last year. And then our contingency then has been netted out from some of the increases, but also the expenditures that we have for outdoor pool capital, outbuilding rekey. This happened after our museum UPDAC pavilion. We were actually able to eliminate a key that we have for a lot of our outbuildings. We had 2 different ones, so we're trying to get everything for all of our pavilions storage rooms all into one key rather than us having mixes of both. So that's what that project was. And then we had AV upgrade portion for planning and operations. That takes us to 2023. We've actualized the revenues for tributes and donations. So it's shown 11,575, less than our budgeted 12,000, and then you'll see that reflected in the expenditure section. UIAC, $10,000 of that was spent for UIC, and $10,000 moving to contingency as part of that transition to the outdoor pool. And you'll see the increase of that $10,000 in the contingency section below. And that takes us to 2024, revision number 2. So this now reflects actual bond sale proceeds to $931,525, and received $25,750 for tributes and donations. And then also is now recognizing auction proceeds from 3 of our vehicles over the course of the last year. And then the DCEO grant, which was a reimbursement grant for Crystal Lake Park that we had then had an intergovernmental agreement with the sanitary district for the bridge replacement and also the path at Ambucks. Moving down into the expenditures, Lake House boats, we had $22,000 budgeted. We paid $19,640 for the 3 boats, I think, 3 or 4. So that remaining 4, that remaining now goes to contingency. The expenditures related to the sanitary districts, the bridge, and the path were $321,083. I think that was from good bid pricing on the path work. So that has, I believe, been paid to the sanitary district, and so now the remaining funds can be released to contingency. And then we have the equipment section, which is actualizing a lot of other expenditures and portions of vehicles and equipment. That's reducing that overall contingency amount for vehicles and equipment from the original $215,000 budget. Now we have the 3/4 ton pickup truck, 2 72-inch mowers, custodial van, portions of the garbage truck, and then title plates. So that nets out reducing to $40,221 overall in that section. And then everything that we had moved into contingency, the overall contingency for 2024, less the portions of exterior beam painting here at planning and operations. Now we have a pretty healthy amount of funds available, $189,377 there that we could utilize. Those are revisions. If you have any questions before maybe I go into 2025. And with 2025, this was presented last month. We didn't have any changes from that, so I won't go line by line, but I'll note that vehicles and equipment, that's a $250,000 line. That's our scheduled replacement for 2 half-ton trucks, 1 3/4 ton, custodial wagon, and then 2 wide area mowers. And then the main projects for this budget year is 1, to be able to provide funding for South Ridge to make up for any costs maybe that we need to, the loss of getting the grant. So first, to protect those funds to make sure we can get that project done. And then whatever is remaining would be utilized for what will be an OSLAD grant for King Park. And that application, I'm assuming, is going to be due in the summer of 2025, so we'll have a really good idea of where we're at with available funding for South Ridge, because that project will be wrapping up at that time. And so you'll see that in the trails projects, hardscapes and fencing, and then there's a separate line for King Park trail and playground of $300,000. So whatever we can utilize as that as part of our match for OSLAD is what is really the main focus of the 2025 capital budget. And then we have Canada shed demo. If you remember from last month, this is really to pay for the utility work there to close those out safely. And the demo of the actual structure is probably going to be an internal project. EV charging installation, this is our local match portion that we're like to utilize for a grant to provide some EV charging priority stations in a district that's yet to be determined fully on where those are going to be. And then Ambuck's restroom painting, I talked about the bigger painting projects at Meadowbrook when we were looking at the 5-year. This is just one of the smaller ones that we would like to knock out hopefully next year at Ambuck's. And that leaves us with around $54,000 in contingency. Nobody wants to say all the revisions.
Do you need a drink?
Man, yeah. That's probably the most I've ever read it.
I know, I'm busy.
Is it move to approve the 2025 capital improvement budget and revisions?
Second.
I think Cedric was first on the second.
You just fill it in.
And do it great.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the phone? Hearing none, let's do a roll call starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting. Item B, action to accept, actually it's a pair of gift agreements, I think, isn't it, for donation of sculpture.
It is. As you know, we've been working with representatives of the family of Cecilia Allen and Roger Blakely. Both of them are Urbana residents, long-term, and super helpful to us in our very early years of formation. I think they had some of the first pieces that came to the Wandell Sculpture Garden. After they passed, I think there was a great effort to kind of consolidate their studio and find new homes for all their artwork, so the families completed all that work, and I think it's determined that ultimately they would like to donate the 2 sculptures to the art district. So we met with them several times. I think they were hoping to find buyers, because they probably do have a need for, resource to recoup after, that long process for both. But they saw the value and opportunity to leave a lasting donation here, right here in Urbana. So we're very pleased that they would consider that. I think we worked out a very fair gift agreement. The only provision we really needed was the flexibility to be able to move own pieces throughout the district. We would have to be locked in with a gift agreement that we could never move it. In fact, we moved Prairie Bowie once already, and we didn't even know that it had been relocated. We'd asked Seal many years ago, hey, we have a new piece coming, we put it here, oh yeah, move, whatever. So we relocated. So they very graciously donated. Staff graciously said we would present it to the board, and right now the district would accept it.
I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners accept this gift agreement with Camilla Carls, representative of Roger Blakely's estate, for donation of the sculptures Prairie Bowie and Southern Passage.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call starting with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously, again, with all 5 commissioners voting. And now it's time for a conference delegate. We've got credentials.
It's that time of year again. I think we were notified by IAPD, it's time for us to list and identify our representatives for the annual IAPD meeting, which is, I think, Saturday at conference. I think it's one of the last meetings that day. As I was mentioned, I will be there, available to attend if others can't or have other plans. So staff certainly will be there. That's the board here. Correct.
Are there commissioners attending?
Aye. I always, I will admit that I missed this meeting, so, I'm glad that Kim is available on the dog.
And again, if somebody said I would be listed and wasn't able to, I would be there, so we would have. Again, the reason is if there's any critical votes, which can't really say I've been a part of meetings I've had prior to my time, I'm sure they did, but if there was a vote, we would want to be able to be listed so you could officially vote. I don't think there's a way to know the agenda ahead of time, if there's controversial topics, but typically they aren't, but there's a lot of good learning and acknowledgements made. So you kind of learn what's happened throughout the year, at least at IATV.
All right, I'm gonna put in my calendar right now, and I will serve as a delegate.
Are you interested in being listed as an alternate?
I'll be listed, I was just gonna say, since we usually right back together, we will, I'll be an alternate.
Oh, well, that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
And then Tim as the second alternate.
All right, so I move to certify that Cedric Stratton, Laura Hastings, it's all the same, right?
Yeah.
And Tim Bartlett are designated to serve as delegates to the annual 2025 business meeting of the IAPP.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or figuring out? Hearing none, let's do a roll call. Starting with Leslie.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Brings us down to anything removed from the consent agenda under new business, and there was none. Comments from commissioners? I guess one thing I did want to bring up, the person who commented on the black box also made what I thought was a very good suggestion, namely that we have on the website, the Park District Board website, an email link that will go to all 5 board members, and I think that is an excellent suggestion. We did not seem to have that presently.
So
It has been addressed. I don't know about that. I don't know if they need to be individual or a group. I'm not sure about the group message, but I've taken it up with marketing about addressing that. And the city, because they set up all of our email accounts.
are they suggesting it goes out as a group though, where you just hit on one link and?
Well,
goes
did
to
you
all-
don't want to, yeah,
I
you
think-
can write the message.
you don't.
Put
So
on
like the
one
city
link.
council has the city council email address that says goes to all city council members. I don't know that it goes to all of them, it's not all of them on the same message, I suspect, it's that it's just like,
Individual message.
yeah, it's like your like, yeah, individual.
Say like,
okay.
like, so for us, it was great, 5.
Separate emails.
Separate
I don't know.
emails, right?
I like that.
Isn't that what we need it to do, so that we don't
Right.
have accidental?
Yeah, so we don't
Agreed.
follow the open meetings. Act.
Right.
That is exactly right.
Any other comments?
Cupcake run was a lot of fun.
Good.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Sprinkles.
I tried to go. Had to taste them as we're passing them out. So so they said, okay, good, absolutely. They were made from a homemade bakery. Christina Lott's sister has a bakery, and so she tapped her sister and she volunteered to make cupcakes. And so they were really, really good.
500 participants, and so it was
A lot of cupcakes.
Yeah, it was.
yeah, we passed out a lot of cupcakes. But it was fun, it was fun.
Okay, any other comments? All right, then session. Next on our agenda is to return to executive session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So I move in accordance with Section 2, Part C, Exception Number 1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. I move to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing an employment matter.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, let's do a roll call starting with that.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 Okay. Yeah, our executive session approved. Where are we going to do it? We're going to,
They can break down this room.
I would suggest going in there so we
Yeah,
can close this,
yeah.
throw all these things away.